Hello everyone. Let me start this off with just a friendly warning. This is going to be a sensitive topic, so if there are any parents out there with young kids that are watching this video, you might want to just reconsider that due to the sensitive nature of this topic, as well as almost kind of the decisive or the divisive nature of this topic. There's a lot of information that I hope to present here to you guys today, but I want to be respectful, especially those who are in the room as well. So just consider yourself warned. Obviously there won't be any cursing or anything like that in this video. Ideally we'll be presenting a lot of facts as well as my opinion on it, but I again, as a parent, I want to make sure I extend that courtesy to anybody out there who might be watching this who might not want any any of their young children exposed to this conversation until a later time in their lives. But this is a conversation that needs to be had. Video games are a part of our lives, and in some cases our daily lives. And with every tragedy that has occurred out there, it's easy to see where people quickly point to video games and to Hollywood to pass the blame, saying that they're to blame for obviously these horrific events. And on an emotional level, they're not wrong. I can even sympathize with their feelings in this case. We're looking for someone to blame. We want answers. We want something to point the finger at and say, well, we have to fix this, and then obviously then that will fix the whole problem. So in this video, I want to focus in on three things: what we know, what we don't, and what we can do about it. And that's the context of this video. So let me first briefly introduce myself if this is your first time here on this channel. My name is Brian, and I love video games. Now, that love of video games pales in comparison to my love of my children. Now, I will play games with my kids. In fact, I really enjoy that. I've been introducing my youngest to video games like Mario and things like that. Things that I think generally the population can consider safe and decent video game playing experience. But I also do play violent video games, or video games that would be perceived as violent by the regular, social world in this case. So games like Halo, I will play. I love the competitive nature of these games, and I think we've seen the rise of competitive sport surrounding these games, and obviously there is that competitive nature, and they're obviously dealing with violence against other players in this case, or they're obviously using guns as weapons in this case. Now, personally, I will play games like Halo, in which that the other player in himself is a Spartan, and it's a little bit removed from person to person. And I do specifically try to avoid games that have an avatar that are focused in on, more human to human looking avatars like Call of Duty. And that's just my personal preference for it. I don't play these kind of games around my children. They're too obviously young for that, but at some point I do actually intend to introduce them to these types of competitive games. Games like Overwatch are somewhat removed from the pure human on human aspect, but every game is going to be different and have a different audience and have a different context that is applied to the game itself, as well as both the competition and any kind of form of single player or story narrative that is the game focuses on. Now, growing up, I obviously grew up playing video games. I've been exposed to them pretty much my entire life. First games coming in at the Nintendo Entertainment System as a child, all the way up through current gaming today with the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, things like that. Now, my parents tried to do their best to keep up with gaming. Now, around the N64 time, it kind of dropped off the spectrum due to the nature of the shift to 3D gaming. It became too difficult for them, and that my dad just said it gave him motion sickness, and so he just kind of became less active in gaming with us, me and my brother and sister at that point. From a video game perspective, board games were always on the table as well. Now, for me and my kids, we share that time together, and I believe that, unless there's some kind of disability like I can't see or can't participate, we'll be playing video games probably well into their adulthood if they're interested in it in the first place. Right now, obviously, Maddie, my oldest, is interested. We get to spend that time together, and it's time that I absolutely cherish with her and with that experience. But I would say there could be an inherent bias with people who've played games their whole life, and these kind of reports that come out, that say, hey, well, I turned out okay. Why? Obviously, video games aren't the problem, and I do want to caution against that mindset that we shouldn't say or think that just because we experience something, we experience gaming growing up, that somebody else isn't going to have a different type of experience, introduce that content. And that really, I guess, drives me into kind of the first of the three topics. What do we know? What are the facts? What do the studies show us around video games and, gun violence or violence in general? And there's actually, we don't know a lot. and we'll get into that more in the second topic. But let's just break it down from what we know. First thing we know is that gun homicide rates are down 49% since its peak in 1993. And this is from the Pew Research Center. And this was published in 2013. So obviously there's been a few years difference, but for the most part, gun homicide rate is down. Now, as it relates to video games, sales has increased of violent video games, and at the same time, we've seen a reduction in violent acts by young males within that same demographic. They've also shown that more violent acts are committed during the summer and less actually in the wintertime when video game sales are set to spike. This was taken from a New York Times article from a SSRN publication. Now, what's interesting to note here is that they actually kind of conclude that the video games, regardless of the violence in this case, are keeping kids busy, and that actually ends up reducing violent offenses. So aggression in young males being kind of what people perceive to be the issue here, obviously then keeping them busy helps reduce that. And we've also seen the same kind of thing happen with sports in some cases for young males, is that you just get them tired and then they're just too tired to go off and cause, I guess, mayhem in this case. So it's fascinating to see that correlation from this study. And again, all of this will be in links in the description below. Now, we've also seen some studies that show that violence in populations can be linked to lead exposure. And this is one reason why we have seen unleaded gasoline, because there was some studies published in the Chicago Tribune that shows violence within people can be a direct correlation to having too much exposure to lead and how it has an impact on brain development. And we also know that gun violence research has pretty much been shut down since 1996. This was due to funding being removed by Congress from the CDC. They haven't been able to adequately research these health concerns that the CDC should be focused in on. So this brings me to what we don't know, and the answer is unfortunately a lot. We don't have enough detail, and that's where everything shifts from fact to feelings, and that's why the debate rages on, and that's why everybody is right and everybody is wrong. Now, where you fall on this particular issue could be have a lot to do with how you were raised, what's your background on it. But let's break it down into just simple understanding: is that if lead can cause an issue with obviously violent tendencies, could something else be causing that same issue within society today? Obviously, we can debate gun control and all of that, access to guns obviously being, I guess, a key point that a lot of people like to make, but there's a lot of work that goes behind it. Breaking it down in its purest and simple context is that if we can't study gun violence, if we can't study why these acts are occurring, especially in these schools and within these public events, if we can't study this, how can we come to the proper and correct conclusion? Yes, we can sit here and debate gun policy and restrictions and all of that. We can look at everything, but all we're doing is, I think, grasping at straws. And so I think finally going into the third and final topic of this video, what can we do? And first is we have to obviously get involved in our government's process. Here in the United States, we are a democratic republic. We have representatives that we need to reach out. We can complain all day that they don't represent us or that special interest represents them more than us. And the question I ask to you is, how involved are we? I'm guilty of this. I sit back and maybe I'm not as involved, but who do they listen to? And it's honestly, I think at the point of anything, it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. A saying that says, if we don't speak up, then how do they know? And we can hope that they change. We can tweet about it. We can hashtag it. Speaking of which, we should totally hashtag free the CDC. We'll try to put that at the bottom of the video. We can do these things, but we have to go further and we have to do more. And this falls on me and you. We need to write our representatives. We need to tell them that the CDC really needs to research this. They really need to dive into so we can start actually dealing with real facts. The studies that are out there are interesting. In fact, the studies regarding that video game sales have increased and violence acts has decreased is great, but it still doesn't get to enough information. We don't know with the individuals who've played these video games, like, were they on any kind of medication? Were they, is there any link there? Were they exposed to lead? Were they, these are the things that we can kind of start to piece together, but correlation doesn't mean causation. And that's something we easily forget. And that's one of the things I want to keep encouraging. Now, as a parent, video games take a center part in our household. We don't have TVs in our rooms. Video games are a centerfold. So if Maddie's playing a game, I'm sitting with her. It's a participation piece. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, and hopefully I'm not making anybody feel judged. You know what? You're a parent. You do what you feel is best for your family. But as a gamer and a gaming dad, that's something that's important to me, and it's something that is a part of the conversation. It's shared just like we would watch a movie together. It's shared as in any form of medium. It isn't a babysitter. Media, YouTube, movies, video games, all of that. Those aren't babysitters. They are something that we can enjoy together. And I think personally, it is a little bit ignorant to think that games don't have an impact on us, that movies don't have an impact on us, when at the same time we'll turn around and say that that book or that movie or that song, they uplifted us or they had some kind of positive feelings. We can't separate the fact that things can have a positive impact on our lives and say that they can't also affect us negatively. I think that's an important point that I wanted to reach with this video, and I hope we could all look at ourselves and kind of ask ourselves some honest and hard questions. All we can do is control who we are, what we do, how we react to things. And we really can't control others. If anybody's a parent out there will know that if you would like a 3-year-old do something, you can say it in a stern voice, you can, try to correct and teach, but at the end of the day, you really hope that, that they listen. In that case, and my job as a parent isn't to control my children, it's to teach them how to control themselves. And that's how it boils down. That's how all this gets summarized, is that there are some studies out there, and people are drawing both sides of the conclusion. They're saying that, yes, that they do. Hollywood should be blamed, or video games should be blamed. And at the same time, no, they don't. And it really, everybody falls on a different side of the coin. In fact, you might lean towards what reaffirms your already held beliefs. And that's natural. And I'm not judging you for that. Welcome to the human race. We all have that in us. What I'm asking is that as individuals, that we work with our representatives, we work within the government, we work locally, we help each other out. We at the end of the day, we love each other enough to take action and ask that these things be asked and research be done, so that maybe we can get the data we need and make a solid conclusion, so that finally we can put this health issue to bed. Anyway, thanks so much for watching this video. My name's Brian. This is Work to Game. Sorry for just the nature of this topic. I wish we wouldn't have to talk about this and that we didn't need to talk about it, but it's the debate that needs to be had. If you do sound off in the comments below, be respectful for everybody's opinions. This is important. If you guys have research and things like that and studies that you find, link them below. I'd love to do more research about this and maybe present this within, I guess, more profound studies. I have been researching this stuff for a long time. I'm not an expert by any means. I am a dad who has kids, who likes video games, and who wants everybody's kids to go to school and be safe. That's who I am, and that's what this video is about. So with that, I hope you are all having a fantastic day. I hope you're safe, happy, and well, and I'll talk to you soon, and take care.